My name is Angela, and I am an ACSYA, and I'm very grateful for the opportunity to be able to interview you today. Could you briefly introduce yourself and describe your role in healthcare, please?
Yeah, so I'm Dr. Tiffany Nguyen. I'm currently out on my first year as an attending in the field of pediatrics, and I ended up choosing to do outpatient pediatrics. So that's where I'm located right now, and I'm working with the Chinese Hispanic population of Rowland Heights.
I see. So, what inspired you to choose such a career, and how did you know that this was the right path for you?
As in the medical field or as in pediatrics?
I mean, go on. I think both would be a good starting point. So maybe we can
Okay.
first talk about like the medical field and then maybe what specifically got you into pediatrics.
Okay. I think in terms of the medical field, grew up, I was always sick as a kid. So that kind of started from there where I just felt like it wasn't the most fun, being at home all the time. But a lot of it was also growing up in um, an immigrant household. There are like expectations, as I'm sure many are aware of, like certain jobs that we're expected to have, right? Doctor,
Mhm.
lawyer, things like that. So being a combination of that kind of started I would say, I guess at the time, my belief or desire to want to be a doctor. But it wasn't really until my college years where I kind of delved into it deeper to try and figure out, is this what I want? Is this what my parents want? It is something that I've talked to people about at the time, and it's definitely a big commitment. So I wanted to make sure that I was still committed to something, and it was because I wanted to do it. And so I took a couple gap years, and I ended up doing a master's program that allowed me to take classes with first year medical students, and that kind of pushed me in the direction of I still wanted to be in that be in the medical field. In terms of pediatrics, I think that was like a no-brainer for me. Just growing up, I always I gravitated toward kids. I am a kid myself at heart. So it always made sense to me to be in pediatrics. Even going through medical school, I at one point considered family medicine, but even during that round of like applying for residency programs, it just didn't feel right to me. I think this is my niche that I knew, regardless of whether I was going to go into medicine or not, that I wanted to stick to.
That's really amazing. And I think that it's really inspiring how you took, your own experiences of not like enjoying being sick as a kid. And then now, you're making sure that other kids don't, feel that same way. That's really
Thank
amazing.
you. Thank you.
So how did your career pathway unfold after like, those initial classes? And what are some maybe different directions that people could take in your field?
Yeah, so I mean, the application process is pretty much what it is, right? You have the requirements and whatnot. So going into it, I don't think I was the standard applicant that you would see for medical school. I didn't have a lot of research background. I personally didn't like putting things on my CV if I didn't like doing them myself. Like
Yeah.
I wasn't too big of a research person, and I didn't feel personally that it was right for me to just do research to have it there if I wasn't
Mhm.
interested in it. A lot of my background was more so cultural. So I worked a lot with like the Vietnamese Student Union, the underserved population of San Gabriel, which is where I grew up. And so that made up my application. And then going into medical school, that was a big journey for me because I ended up moving from California to Michigan, and that was like
Wow,
my
that's really
yeah, I
far.
I stayed in California my whole life, and then I ended up moving to Michigan where I had like no family members. So that was something to get used to. Um and I think just definitely the biggest thing I realized during the whole process is that you just have to keep reminding yourself that this is what you wanted to do. It gets really hard. There are many a times where I wanted to quit. And it gets very lonely. And that was one of the biggest advice that I had gotten before I even started this journey, that it gets lonely, because you spend a lot of time studying. A lot of your friends have moved on. A lot of my friends were business majors. So it's just kind of coping with that, as well as the rigors of being in medicine, like the studying process, all the testing, and then handling patient care, and just making time for all of that, but also making time for yourself. And I think at the end of med school, going to residency, you feel like you're finally making it somewhere, right? Like
Right.
you're done with that, you're finally done with education, you're on to training. But residency is also a whole nother just beast in and of itself. We worked 80-hour weeks
Oh,
on
wow.
average. um yeah, I moved back home, so I was at Loma Linda for residency. I live an hour away from my family, but even then I didn't see them very much. So that was also hard, but I think now that I'm at attending life, where I chose the outpatient field, I have a little more time to do what I want, and that's to spend time with family. I think that's the biggest thing for me, that I chose a career that allowed me to spend time with family and friends that are getting older. I don't see, me personally, I just wanted to have that work-life balance. But obviously, once you're in medical school, that's when you kind of decide what field you want to go in, whether it's OB-GYN, going through labor and delivery, whether it's surgery, whether it's adult medicine, pediatrics, things like that, right? And then you apply for residency, which is where you do your specialized training in that field you've chosen. And then, so depending on the number of years you go through the training, and then by the end of it, you also get to decide, do you want to do outpatient, or general medicine practice in that field, or do you want to specialize? And that's when you again apply for fellowship and all that. So it kind of gets more and more focused in what you want to do as you move through the journey.
Wow, that's like, I'm sure that journey must have been like, it's like a crazy roller coaster. There are highs and then you have your
Yeah.
lows. It's really, really cool because I think a lot of people obviously know like the standard structure of saying like, oh, like do this and then go to this
Yeah.
school and then do this program. But
Yeah.
I think something that I've come to realize is that a lot of times there are many different paths that lead up to that eventual same like standard route. And that I think you telling me like, oh, like, I struggle with these things, and that, I didn't have the exact same maybe like kind of plan as the rest of
Yeah.
the people in the course. And I think that's something that people should realize, like, hey, like I don't have to force myself to immediately go
Yeah,
into a field.
I agree with that. I think as you're going through it initially, you're kind of like, man, I need to go through college and then go to med school right away and all that, because you feel like you can't stop, right? Like gap years are I at the time, for when I was going through it, gap years were considered like waste of time and things like that. But I had people in my med school who were full-blown lawyers, and they decided to change a field. Yeah, and I've had people now that in my residency cohort, or at least the years below me, where they had like families, they had full-blown careers before, but they decided to change. So it's not like I agree with you, there's not like one straight route, the standard that people are so used to.
Mhm. Yeah, no, that's definitely very important because I think maybe sometimes people are a little bit scared going into the healthcare field because,
Mm-hmm.
again, like you said, it's a really big commitment. And
Yeah.
you also have to know if it's something you really want to do or not, because
Mm-hmm.
you're going to be putting so much time of your life
A
into it.
lot of time, lot of
But
time.
I think that it's so important that if later down in life you realize, hey, actually, I do want to do this, that there's absolutely a route that you can still take to get
No,
to
for
where you
sure.
are
Yeah.
now.
Yeah,
Okay,
for sure.
so what would like a typical day in your life, like, treating patients, things like that, what would that look like
Now or before?
now?
Now, well, like I said, I'm in the outpatient field now. So my day looks a little different compared to what it was before. So my current position, I work full time, I typically, the clinic opens from 9 to 6, right? So we see patients for 4 hours, have lunch, and then 4 hours. And during that time, we can have people walking in on top of the people that are already scheduled. So if we're able to fit them, then at most I see, the most I've seen in a day, I think was like 27, 28. Yeah.
That's a lot
So
of people.
yeah, it's a lot of people, right? So it's, you get used to that, and depending on the training that you had, my program Loma Linda was very inpatient heavy. So when we did our outpatient like rotation or clinics, we've had at most like, I think like 10 to 12 in a day. So it's a
Hmm.
very big jump. So I spend my most of my days doing the visits and then working on the notes. So that's one of the things I don't think that was very, it's not very talked about, right? That
Hmm.
you think about patient care, you're doing the patient care, you're speaking with them, trying to figure out what's wrong, trying to treat them, but then you have to document it all. So a good chunk of my day after work is still just typing away at the notes.
Oh, wow.
Because it's just you don't want it to add up either, right? Imagine like
Hmm.
28 notes and you just procrastinate on one day, then it's just, it kind of snowballs, right?
Right, right.
So I spend a lot of my time doing that. So my off days are actually when, I actually kind of, just relax a little bit, spend time with friends and family. But work days are typically, working from the time I wake up until like I go to sleep.
Yeah, it's very dedicated. I think,
Yeah.
I mean, like, I think that's also a good consideration because I'm sure that a lot of people, like you said, think about like, oh, I'm going to see patients and I would have to
Yeah.
talk to them, interact them, give them treatment, but maybe
Hmm.
not so much about how I need to like record these things down and put it into
Yeah.
the system. And then after that, like you want to make sure that all of those notes are good at the end of the day before you
Yeah.
truly end your workday.
Yeah, because I think where we are now, right? We have to consider like liability. We have to make sure that everything we do and say, like it's accurately documented, and making sure we send all our prescriptions in. And then on top of that, if you're an outpatient, I also have like an inbox of, tasks to do, and those pile up too. So you have to just kind of knock away at it a bit at a time.
Yeah, I think, yeah, definitely self-management skills will be so important if
Yeah.
this is like a career that kids want to pursue in the future.
Yeah, for
So
sure.
you shared some advice earlier about how like overcoming loneliness and kind of understanding that's just part of the
Hmm.
process is like kind of to the journey of where you are today. But what other maybe insider tips would you share with students who are considering this career in healthcare?
Um, if you're specifically considering, being a physician, I think that traditionally people think about MD, and I know there's like DOs as well, and I would advise that that's not something people should be afraid of,
Hmm.
because I think when I was applying, this was like a while ago now, like 7 years ago now. There's still that stigma, right? And I feel like there still is a bit of that stigma of like MD, DO, and all that. I guess it matters if you were interested in like international medicine, where DOs might not be as recognized, but, I know people that are DOs who are just as qualified as physicians, and I know people that are MD that might have needed a little more work. You never
Hmm.
know. So I feel like when you're applying, I don't think you should be scared to apply to, any program. Obviously, as long as they're, within good standing and all of that, and have what you feel is a good fit for you. But I don't think you should cut off like a whole DO path because of that. I think that was one of the biggest things that I learned. I applied twice, I believe. Yeah. So that's why I think from the first time to the second time, that was an understanding that I like kind of realized, or something that I came to, where it didn't really matter, because at the end of the day, they're physicians that receive training as physicians. It's kind of like anyone at school, right? You receive relatively the same education depending on your classes, but like some people do better at something, some people do worse at it. It's the same thing. It
Mm-hmm.
doesn't matter if you're DO, MD. Some people are good at something, some people are bad at other things. But I don't think the title of DO should stray you from applying to that, because that opens up, more opportunities for you if you're really like very motivated and dedicated to go into medicine as a provider, as a physician.
Mm-hmm.
It's just the DOs, they do have an extra portion where they do osteopathic medicine. I can't really speak to that because I don't have that training, but I think it's more like muscle manipulation and things like that, that they have an extra, like that's an extra portion of their curriculum. Yeah, so I think that was one of the biggest things that I took away from it,
Mm-hmm.
from the whole application process.
Yeah, no, that's great. And I think that, like obviously, people think about, oh, I want to become a doctor, but there's so many different kinds of doctors.
Yeah,
There's so many different ways that you can become a doctor.
yeah.
And I think that, just being open-minded and being willing to explore those options is
Hmm.
definitely a really good advice that I guess teens my age should kind of think about. Yeah. Um, Looking forward into the future for like the next 5 to 10 years, how do you think your field will change?
um Pediatrics is hard. I think because I feel like people aren't as interested in have growing their families per se, in terms of like having kids anymore, right? So
Hmm.
that's something that we have to consider, because um I mean, if you look at just around me, my generation, I feel like we're giving birth at an older age. We're more
Hmm.
focused on career. At some points, like none of my friends, like some of them have gotten married, sort of. They're in committed relationships, but like only
Right.
one or two actually got married. No one has kids yet. I'm in my early 30s, so it's that I think that's one of the hardest things, that we might not have as big as that population available to us anymore, if like the birth rates obviously is not as high, right? We know international countries are having that issue. We're always worried that it might be a problem here as well.
Hmm.
um but also I think just the political climate, I've never been much of a political person, but obviously that affects our recommendations, right? Like recently, I can speak to like the vaccine recommendations. We've heard a lot about the vaccines that are recommended for the newborns, for the babies, for the young ones, and so um, I think that's something that's gonna heavily change in the field, in terms of like what is scientifically, clinically proven, and research recommendations are based on that, right? But what is actually proven versus what is being spread around, and that's, I think, a conflict that we have to just kind of learn how to navigate, and learn how to navigate well, because we're having even just in the last couple of months, we've had a lot more families coming in asking like, why do I even need this? I heard, per se, that this wasn't needed, it's not safe. So it's just trying to keep up with all that, all the changing recommendations with any field. Really, you have to keep up with the recommendations. After you're done with residency, you take your boards, but that's not the end. Every couple of years you have to take those boards to get your license renewed, right? And that means keeping up to date with like the recommendations of your field, and how just how the political climate, I think, it's going to affect that, is one of the biggest things.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's always interesting to see how like health policies are always changing. Even if we have
Hmm.
the same person who is running the country, we
Yeah.
definitely see so many new policies get pushed out, so
Hmm.
many old ones getting replaced. So I think that saying that, how it's going to look like 5 to 10 years from now could be completely different, could be completely the same. We have no clue
Yeah,
because
I I imagine different, but I don't know. I think part of me is hoping it'll be the same-ish.
Mhm. Yeah, no, I definitely agree. I think we're at a pretty decent place now, I think, in
Yeah.
healthcare. And we've definitely come a very long way from where we
Yeah.
were, like even if we look back like 10, 15 years ago to
Yeah,
where
for
we are
sure.
today. So I think it's really important for all healthcare providers to really kind of hold on to the hope that not only are we making sure that we're doing what we can like best for the patients, right? But also continuing to improve that medicine because
Hmm.
I mean, I don't know, maybe this is me personally, but I think for me, like I want to go into the healthcare field because hopefully one day we could eliminate some of those diseases. And even if that
Hmm.
means that I no longer have a job, at least people aren't suffering out there.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's the thing that I think going through just medicine, you just have to keep having your motivations repeated to you. It's just there's so many obstacles in this journey, and even when you're done with all your training, there's still things that are just gonna you're just gonna have to push through and work through. And I think that's where it's important to kind of keep reminding yourself, like, what was your whole point in
Mm-hmm.
doing all of this? What was your initial goals, you know? Because it's so easy to lose sight of that. And I can say that like that's happened to me multiple times, and it's really important to have that support system with you. And I think that that's like a really big factor of how I even finished this journey in the first
Mm-hmm.
place.
So yeah, so key takeaway is that know why you're doing this.
Yeah.
And even when times get tough, it's okay. Like you can have moments where maybe you don't feel so great, but just remind yourself again why you're doing this. And, if you yourself cannot convince yourself, make sure that you have a good support group that can lift you up when you're,
Yeah,
down.
for
Yeah.
sure.
That's really amazing. I'm
Thank
so
you.
like I am always in awe when I see, all of these stories of you guys doing all these amazing things, but also just knowing that you guys have gone through your fair share of trials and tribulations to get to where you are today. It's really amazing.
Thank you.
Yeah. So thank you so much for taking the time to share your journey and experiences with us today. Your insights about the pathway to becoming an outpatient physician and also just in general the medical field, those
Thank
challenges
you.
and rewards, and your advice for the future are so incredibly valuable. We really appreciate your openness and generosity in helping students better understand what it takes to build, a good future when it comes to this career pathway. And your words will definitely not only guide us, but also inspire the next generation of healthcare professionals. Thank you so
Thanks.
much.
Thanks, Angela. I appreciate you even giving me this opportunity. So thank you so much.
Yeah, no, thank you. I'm sorry that if I spoke too fast or anything, but
No, you were fine.
yeah, no, I was really nervous walking into this, but I was like, I feel like a lot of times some of like our like family physicians, especially for like pediatrics, like they get overlooked because you guys see so many patients day in, day out that for me, like just knowing that you guys are there to support us and to be there for us, no matter how big or how small of an issue, it really makes me feel a lot better about where we are in this world right now.
Thank you. Yeah, I don't know. I think I was kind of nervous too because I wasn't sure what to expect, but obviously every time I've seen you and your family, it's always been a great meeting. So I just kind of took it as that and it was just like, I'm just gonna have a conversation with her. So I appreciate the opportunity for all that.
Yeah, no, thank you so much. That'll be
Okay, have
all.
a thank you. Have a good evening,
Have a good
okay?
evening too.
Okay,
Thank you so
bye.
much. Bye.